I get it, so many subwoofers look amazing on the photo grid, promise thunderous lows, and then sit on the floor like a pricey paperweight when you finally plug them in. I've heard the same frustration from friends who tried to upgrade their bookshelf speakers only to end up with a sub that either drowned the music or stayed stubbornly quiet. If you've been hesitating because you don't want to repeat that mistake, stick around. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Subwoofers are a weird little niche. On paper, a bigger driver and a ported box equal louder bass, but in a real living room the story changes. You have to consider room size, speaker pairing, and the type of content you'll be watching or listening to. A common mistake is buying a massive, ported sub for a modestly sized apartment, only to discover it overwhelms the room and creates muddy resonances. Conversely, a tiny sealed box can feel invisible if you're trying to fill a large open-plan space. The sweet spot is a unit that can blend with high-quality bookshelf or compact three-way speakers, stay tight enough for music, and still give enough punch for movie explosions without taking over the whole room. That's where the REL T/9X steps in. It's a 10-inch sealed sub with a Class AB amplifier, which means you get that classic REL control and musicality rather than the brute force you'd see in a ported competitor. The sealed design gives a fast, accurate response, so low notes resolve cleanly instead of lingering like fog. The unit also offers RCA inputs that can be switched between line level and high level, letting you connect directly to a stereo preamp or tap the speaker outputs of an AV receiver. In practice, that flexibility means you can drop it into a pure HiFi setup with a pair of KEF LS50S and get a seamless extension of the bass, or you can slip it into a home theater chain behind a Yamaha receiver and let the sub handle movie effects without needing a separate crossover. REL advertises suitability for spaces up to about 800 square feet, and in my own 550 square feet living room the T/9X filled the corners nicely without turning the whole place into a bass-driven echo chamber. If you have modest three-way speakers or top-tier bookshelf pairs and you want a sub that adds depth without dominating, this is the sweet spot product. What you really notice on the day-to-day is how the T/9X behaves in two different scenarios. First, watching a movie on a 55-inch OLED, the explosions in an action film become tactile. You feel the rumble in the floorboards, but the dialogue stays crystal clear because the sub stays disciplined and doesn't bleed into the mid-range. Second, when spinning vinyl on a turntable, the bassline of a jazz double bass becomes rounder, and the low end of a classic rock track gets that extra body that makes the mix feel complete. The sub's white high-gloss finish also blends surprisingly well in a modern living room. It's not an eyesore like a black box tucked into a corner. The downside is that because it's sealed, it won't produce the deepest sub-bass you might get from a 12-inch ported unit, so if your primary goal is to feel the floor shake for large-screen home theater installations, you might still feel a bit underserved. Another practical note, the internal amplifier is powerful, but you'll need to set the gain correctly. A few users report that if the input level is set too high, the sub can clip on fast transients, which is easily fixed by dialing back the source volume or using the built-in level control. Finally, the price point is higher than many budget sealed subs, so if you're looking for a cheap add-on, you'll probably be disappointed. However, the value you get is in the precision and the way it integrates without a separate crossover or DSP. So who should walk away with the T/9X? If you already own a pair of high-end bookshelf speakers, a compact three-way system, or you're building a small to medium home theater that needs a bass anchor without a cavernous box, this sub is a solid match. It's also a good fit for audiophiles who want music-grade bass that stays musical and doesn't dominate the room. On the flip side, if you live in a very large open space, love the thunderous boom of a ported sub, or are on a tight budget, you might be better served looking elsewhere. In the end, the REL T/9X delivers the kind of controlled, musical bass that lets your main speakers shine while still giving you that extra impact for movies and music. If that sounds like the balance you've been chasing, give it a look. Link is in the description.